Kia ora, I'm Erin J. Doyle. Welcome to my channel. Those of you who've been watching my videos for a while will have repeatedly heard me refer to the Camino de Santiago because that's the setting of the novel I'm currently working on. But it's recently been pointed out to me that maybe some of you don't know what the Camino is. So I thought I would make a video talking about what the Camino is, obviously. This video will be the first of an eventual playlist. I am planning to make future videos talking about how to prepare for the Camino, how to train, what to pack, that kind of thing. And then next time I walk the Camino de Santiago, I will probably vlog it. But at the moment I don't know when that will actually be. Possibly next year, maybe the year after. So more videos on the Camino de Santiago will come. I just don't know when, and for now this will be a one-off video. The Camino is one of the oldest hiking trails in the world. This is a pilgrimage trail which was walked by pagans prior to the rise of Christianity in Spain. The Celtic pagans living in Spain, as well as the Roman pagans, possibly pagans from other parts of the world, would travel from wherever it was that they lived to the coast of Spain, where they believed the world ended. Once they got there, they would burn their clothes, presumably put on different ones, pick up a seashell to show that they had made it to the coast, and then they would walk home again. And this was a rebirth type of thing. When the Catholic Church took over the region, they did what they usually do, which is take the pagan rituals that the pagans won't let go of and put a nice Christian spin on it. The spin for this is that this is the path that St. James walked. The Catholic Camino is the way of St. James, and it finishes not at the beach but at the Cathedral of St. James in Santiago de Compostela, where he is entombed. So the Catholic pilgrimage is to walk that journey, finishing at the church, receive a certificate of completion or a Compostela, and then attend Mass, and thus all your sins are forgiven. Because it was originally walked from wherever people lived to one destination, it had many different paths that all had one end point. So how far you walked and what sort of terrain you would experience would depend on where you chose to start walking from. In order to gain your Compostela or certificate of completion, these days you have to start no further than 100 kilometers from Santiago. However, you can start in Portugal, you can start in Germany, you can walk a northern route, you can walk a southern route. There are many paths, some of which have better infrastructure than others. Both times that I've walked the Camino de Santiago, I have walked the Camino Français, or the French way, meaning that I have started in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port in France, crossed the Pyrenees, and cut across the northern part of Spain without going so far north as to walk the coastal route. This is a very popular route once you get into like the longer distances, which was one of the appeals to me as I was walking solo, and I wanted to have a lot of company on the road, just for safety reasons. It's also a very well supported route with a lot of accommodations, places to get water and those sorts of things. It's very well sign marked because of its popularity, which was again an appeal. Because of the Camino's popularity, there are tour groups that you can join which will support you through the journey. They will do things like ship your pack forward so you don't have to carry a lot of gear, and your main bag will be waiting for you at the end of every day. They will book your accommodation, they will book your meals, you just pay them and they obviously do all of that work. But you don't have to do that. You can just show up and start walking, more or less. All you need to walk the Camino de Santiago is a credential. This document is proof that you are a pilgrim walking the Camino de Santiago. When you pick this up from the Pilgrim Information Office, they will note down the way that you're travelling, whether that's on foot, on horseback or on bike, and they will record your passport information and a few other details. So that information is recorded in the front page, and then they stamp it. In every town you stop in, you gain a stamp. These stamps show that you have stopped at regular intervals. You can gain stamps at the albergues or refuges that you stop at. These are like hostels that are specific for pilgrims, and you have to have a credential to stay in them. You can also get stamps at a lot of bars and restaurants and tourist shops along the way. So it's a good way of kind of recording where you've been. This credential is what you present at the Pilgrim's office in Santiago de Compostela to receive your Compostela. I don't know exactly where this rule is written, but it is the rule that all pilgrims just happen to know, that in order to receive your Compostela, you have to not only have walked 100 kilometers, but you have to have 2 stamps per day. So people tend to get the stamp from the accommodation where they're staying in, and then they'll get a stamp at whichever restaurant or cafe they stop at for a drink or lunch in the middle of the day. It's very easy to get 2 stamps, but rumour has it that if you don't get 2 stamps, you won't get your Compostela, because it raises questions of whether you actually walked it or maybe just got a stamp at your accommodation and then hopped on a bus. In Santiago, you take your completed credential to the Pilgrim's office and you receive, after a very long wait in line, a credential. So this is a free document to show that you have completed the Camino. For an extra few euros, you can get a certificate of distance. This records how far you actually walked, because the Camino has so many starting points. If you started in Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port, you've covered officially 775 kilometers. So having a certificate to say that you've walked that far is worth the couple of extra euros, in my opinion. You can also, again, for just a couple of extra euros, buy a tube to store your documents in safely. So we'll put these back in there where they live. Eventually I'll get them framed, but I am disorganisation. I don't know about the other paths of the Camino, but with the Camino Francés, it's very easy to find your way. It is very well signposted, and I don't feel that you really need a map or a guidebook to find your way because of that. However, you can buy guidebooks. This is the guidebook that I carried. It's by John Brierly, and he's probably one of the more popular authors, particularly because his book is multilingual. And it comes in a very, very thin, lightweight edition. You can get much bigger, more information, but of course more weighty copies of the book. The Brierly guidebook, as other authors' books would be, is broken up into stages. So you have 1 map per day. The idea being that if you walk from the bottom of the page to the top of the page in 1 day, you'll have a map per day, and you will be able to complete the Camino de Santiago in 33 days. However, very important to be aware that this is an intense way of doing it. Walking just shy of 800 kilometers in a little over 30 days is extremely demanding because the terrain is not flat. You put a lot of strain on your body, and I have met a lot of people who have acquired significant injuries because they're pushing themselves to meet the 33-day deadline that's described in this book. However, if you ignore the specific stages that he describes, the information is still really handy because the guidebook tells you how far it is between the town you're in and the next town, and more importantly, if the next town has any accommodations. Not all towns do. So whilst you don't necessarily need this to find your way, knowing which town ahead of you has accommodation and how far it is helps you decide if you're going to stop walking in the town you're in or if you're going to walk on to the next town or not. This book doesn't show information on bus routes or pharmacies, but some other guidebooks do. This one does give information on where water fountains are, but in the case of all of those types of information, I would take it with a grain of salt personally, because I've often seen the guidebooks have become out of date. I have gone to a water fountain that's shown in this guidebook only to discover that it's not drinkable. I have seen a guidebook which did specify where the pharmacies are, only to discover that the pharmacy in the guidebook was no longer there. So they're not infallible, so it's really important that you get the most up-to-date one possible. I bought this one in 2015. I will not be using this exact copy when I walk the Camino again. I'll buy a brand new edition. I have a lot more that I could say about the Camino, but I feel like I've answered the basic question of what is it, so I will wrap things up here. However, if you do have any further questions for me, do leave them in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them, and if there are lots I might make another video. But for now this will be my only Camino specific video until I know when I'll be walking the Camino de Santiago for a third time, and then I'll make a few more videos about the preparation for that, and eventually I'll probably vlog it as well. If you've enjoyed this video, do give it a like, and if you're new around here, consider hitting subscribe so you can stay up to date, and I'll see you next time. Bye! Oh,